Welcome to Pool Care 365. This video is about helping you maintain your pool an easier and a better way. As most of you know, pools can be a pain in the butt, but actually they're actually super easy to maintain. And that's when you have the right pool equipment, right? Today's video is about filters on your swimming pool. And the way I kind of like to explain it is, it's probably like a car engine. If you don't have all the right parts to that engine, it's not going to run properly and you're going to have a lot of problems down the road. The swimming pool is almost kind of the same way, right? Having the right pump, the right filter, the right chemicals in the pool, with all those things coming together and being right, pools are actually really easy to maintain, including having a proper cleaner in the pool that's vacuuming it every day for you. So today I'm going to explain the difference between the three filters that we use in the pool industry. All right, starting with a sand filter, a cartridge filter, and then a DE filter, which is known as a diatomaceous earth filter. All right, so sit back, relax. This is kind of a long video, and maybe grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and we'll get into it. Okay, so it's really important that you understand swimming pools are actually super easy to maintain. Okay, like I said, once you have all the right parts on the pool and everything is functioning the way it should, you should really have to only go out there once a week, test the water 15-20 minutes, check the pump, make sure it's clean the baskets, things like that, and then everything runs really well. All right, the problem is that when you don't have the right size pump or the right size filter, or you're not adding the right amount of chemicals, that's where you get into problems, or you don't have a cleaner in the pool. Then I hear a lot of complaints about pools are a pain in the butt, they're hard, I don't want a pool, it's costing me too much. Well, one of the reasons it's going to cost you a lot too is because you don't have the right equipment, right? Having the right equipment is very important. So I'm going to go into each filter and kind of break them down for you so you have a really good idea of, if you have a filter, it might not be the right size or it might not be the right filter depending on the amount of water you have that you're filtering, or even the landscape around the pool, which makes a big difference also if you're getting a lot of debris in the pool on a weekly basis. All right, so the first one we're going to go into today is the sand filter. Okay, but before we go into the sand filter, I want you to remember this number. Okay, algae in the pool is approximately 1.5 to 15 particles. And particles is, like a grain of salt, right? Or even smaller. The human eye can only see dirt or debris at 25 particles, okay? So that tells you how small that is, all right? So if you can, remember this number, all right? And it's gonna make a lot of sense to you as we go through the filters. I'm gonna break each one down for you, all right? So the first one is the sand filter. The sand filter uses sand in order to filter your water, right? So it's a typically, big fat round tank, and they fill it up with sand, and it typically has anywhere from 300 to 900 pounds of sand, depends on the size of the tank, okay? And that's a silica sand that they use. So sand filters are mostly used on like commercial pools and some of the pools in the desert and things like that. When you use a sand filter, most folks will use a clarifier, which is a flocculant that helps the sand filter, just because it can only filter particles at 75 to 100 microns. And when the filter is clean, it's getting as low as 75. Now, remember what I told you, algae is approximately 1.5 to 15. So this doesn't really do a good job. The water will look clear to you. You know, it's probably is your neighbor's pool that has a Cartridge or a DE filter on it, right? But it's not clear. To really tell if a sand filter is doing as good of a job as, say, a Cartridge or a DE, the best way to tell is at night when you turn the lights on and you look in front of the lights, you can actually see the particles moving, all right? So back to the way the filter works. It has sand in it, and water goes in, filters through the sand, comes down, and in the bottom of the sand filter, it has these laterals. And then the water goes through the laterals, comes out, back into the swimming pool, all right? Now, a sand filter also have a backwash valve on it, meaning when the tank gets dirty, you're able to flip the valve and reverse the flow inside the tank, which flushes out all the debris and the dirt. Not so much debris, you know, because when I say debris, it probably sounds like leaves and things like that. If leaves and things are getting into your tank, then you probably have a broken basket, and what will happen, it'll actually clog the impeller to the pump, okay? So the dirt actually will get flushed out from the sand filter. So sand filters will have two types of valve, but mainly the main valve on a sand filter is a multi-port valve. And a multi-port valve allows you to do a couple of things, okay? It's exactly what it sounds like. It will allow you to backwash the filter, and then when you're done, you need to rinse the laterals, because remember, all the dirt is going back into the laterals, which comes out the backwash line. If you went from backwash to filter, whatever's left in those laterals will actually blow back into your swimming pool, right? So after you finish backwashing, it's important that you put the backwash valve on rinse, let it rinse out the laterals for 60 seconds or so, and then after that you can put it back into filter mode. Okay, a multi-port valve also has a recirculating mode, which means you can put it on a recirculating, which will bypass the filter completely, and water will just come from the pool back into the pool. All right, it's not used very often. It also has a draining mode. So, if you have too much water in your pool, it overfills, or it rains too much, you can actually put it on drain, which will bypass the filter, and it'll actually flush it out the backwash line, okay? Most pools that have a backwash line will actually have it plumbed to your sewer line or a P-trap. We call it a P-trap, which that P-trap, the dirty water goes into it, and then it connects into a sewer line somewhere, okay? Now, after you, if you wanted to drain the pool down, like I said, you can put it into drain mode or whatever it is, right? And then when you're done, you put it back into filter. That's the difference between a sand filter compared to the rest, okay? That it uses sand to filter your pool water. And then most sand filters, again, if you're in the desert somewhere, or you're getting a lot of dust in the pool, and the pool's turning green really fast, or it's turning green often, well, it's two reasons. It's one, you have no chlorine, or two, your filter's not working the way it is, all right? Which will cause the pool to turn green. So using a flocculant, something like a Clarify, if you went to the pool store or any brick and mortar store and you ask them for a clarifier, they will sell you that, which is mainly used on a sand filter, because what it does, it pulls all the particles that goes through the sand and back into the pool. It makes it bigger so the sand filter can catch it, because if you take a grain of sand and you look at it under a microscope, it kind of looks like a crystal. So when you put all this sand together, it actually interlocks. right? And then as the water goes through, that's how it traps the debris or the dirt, right? When you're using a clarifier, it's important that you kind of, keep an eye on the filter, because the pressure will go up a lot faster, because now it's actually filtering a lot more, okay? So that is a sand filter. So remember, sand filter filters anywhere from 75 to 100 microns. And then remember, algae in the pool is approximately 1.5 to 15 microns. So a lot of dirt will get past your sand filter, okay? Now, the next filter is your cartridge filter, which is this guy right here. So a cartridge filter filters roughly at about 40 microns, okay? Which is still not good enough to catch algae. It'll catch a lot of dirt, but the other thing you have to keep in mind is that if you don't have the right size filter or the right filter, it just means that you need to run the pool more often, right? And a longer run time, which is more electric and all of that, okay? So a cartridge filter, typically what it is, it's just a tank, and it has a cartridge in it. If most of you have seen like a filter, how it has like a cartridge built in, that's what it is, right? You take the cartridge out, you hose it off, you put it back. A cartridge filter do not have a backwash valve on it, okay? The only way to clean it is by taking the tank apart, taking the cartridge out, hosing it off every few months or every few weeks. Just depends on how much debris or dirt you're getting in the filter, which is causing high pressure, right? Now, the cartridge, if you have a 10,000 gallon pool or 15 or 20,000 gallon pool, there's a lot of cartridge filters out there that only take one cartridge, right? And then the proper size filters will have 4 cartridges, okay? Now they say a cartridge filter is cheaper to run because it's less maintenance, and then less water. You don't lose as much water as when you're backwashing a sand filter or a DE filter. But if you have a cartridge filter that only has one cartridge, I can see, yeah, you're saving water in that sense. But if you have 4 cartridges and you only clean it every 3 to 6 months, it's going to take you time to clean all 4 of them, okay? Which means you're probably losing as much water as you would backwashing a filter that has a backwash valve on it. Because again, remember, cartridge filters don't have a backwash valve. You'll have some guys that'll put a valve on it, but it doesn't really do anything because it's not set up inside the tank to do that, right? They'll pretty much put a backwash valve on it to, if you want to drain the pool down or something like that, but it doesn't have the pipings inside in order to reverse the flow to flush that cartridge out, okay? And a cartridge is made with a paper material, and it has pleats, okay? And then these bands around the pleats. So if you have a cartridge filter and those bands are broken or they're missing or whatever it is, you need to replace it, because what's happening, those bands actually holds the pleats in place, okay? And if those bands are missing, when the tank is under pressure, the pleats are actually just flopping around, okay? So, which means the water is not going through them properly, okay? The tank can't do what it needs to do, all right? So that's a cartridge filter. So again, remember, cartridge filters only filter at about 40 microns, right? Algae is about 1.5 to 15, okay? Oh, this is a good one. So the human eye sees dirt or particles at 25 microns, okay? Just in case you're wondering. All right. Now the next filter is a DE filter, which is known as a diatomaceous earth filter, all right? Now this filter filters anywhere from 2 to 3 microns. Again, let me say that again. The DE filter filters anywhere from 2 to 3 microns. If you look at the sand filter, we're at 75 to 100. Cartridge filter, 40. Algae is approximately 1.5 to 15, so which means the DE filter does the job the best. And I'll explain to you why. So a DE filter have these elements in it. It's called grids, and they typically have 8 grids inside of them, okay? And those grids, they're made of these, they have these plastic ribs, and then they're covered with a fabric, okay? Now, when those grids are in the tank, the diatomaceous earth that we add to the skimmer that goes in and it coats those grids, okay? It sits on the outside of the grid. So when your tank is running and filtering, the water actually have to go through the powder, which is diatomaceous earth, and then the grids that have the fabric. So it acts like 2 layers of filtration, right? That's why it catches such small particles of dirt and debris in your pool, okay? Now, it's probably one of the hardest to maintain, in the sense that, you know, this tank comes also with a backwash valve, okay? And you can either put a push and pull valve, which is typically, you know, you push it down or pull it up, and it reverses the flow, flushes everything out, including the diatomaceous earth and any debris or dirt that's in the tank. So anytime you backwash it, you need to add the powder, which is the diatomaceous earth, back to the skimmer, so it goes back in and recoats the grids. If you run the filter without the diatomaceous earth, you're causing harm to the grids, because everything is going to stick to the grids directly. And because it's a fabric, once the dirt, oils, and everything sticks to that, water cannot go through it properly. And then your tank starts running high pressure and everything slows down, including the suction to the cleaner and the skimmer. And if you have a waterfall or a spa that pours into a pool, it all slows down, right? So adding the diatomaceous earth anytime you backwash is so important, all right? Now, the diatomaceous earth, it's recommended that you take it apart at least twice a year to clean it, okay? And it can get a little tricky when you take it apart to clean it, because you need to, when you take the grids out of the tank, okay, it's connected to a top manifold and a bottom manifold, and there's a rod in the center. So you would take the nut off the rod, take the top manifold off, inspect it, make sure it has no cracks and no splits. If it does have any cracks or splits, you need to replace it, because what will happen when you do put it back into the tank, any dirt will go right through the manifold back into the pool. But not only the dirt, also the diatomaceous earth. And then you're gonna start seeing your pool looks a little cloudy, it's not filtering right, you're gonna start having problems with it, right? Some folks will put silicone on it and put it back in. My recommendation, replace it, okay? Silicone is like a temporary fix, but if you want the pool to run right, just replace it, right? So when you take the grids out, you take the nut off from the bolt, from the rod, and you let the grids come apart, and there's 8 of them. There's 7 full and 1 partial, okay? And the reason for the partial, it's really like a half of one of the grids, and it's made that way because there's a pipe in the tank that the manifold needs to sit on, all right? So when you take it apart, you want to inspect every grid as you wash them off to make sure the ribs inside the grid aren't broken, and then the fabric over the ribs aren't ripped or tear. If the ribs inside the grids are broken, you want to replace them, because what's happening is that those ribs are there to hold the fabric straight. And then when you put it back in, that fabric is just collapsing, right? So again, you're losing filtration area in the tank, okay? So it's important that, you know, you take it apart at least twice a year, take it apart completely and hose them off, inspect him, and then put it back together. And that's where the maintenance get a little harder, because taking them apart, it's a little tricky to put them back together, because when you're putting them back together, they want to kind of go in every direction, right? The best way is actually putting it back together upside down. If you can find, you know, 2 bricks or something to balance the manifold, the top manifold, which will now be on the bottom because you're going to put it together upside down, is the best way. Once the manifold is balanced, then you can lay all the grids into the top manifold properly, and then take the bottom manifold and put it on, put the bolt on, and then flip it back over and tighten it up, okay? That's the easiest way to do it. So the thing is, again, with the diatomaceous earth filter, the DE filter, it's more maintenance, but you get the best filtration out of it, all right? For me, I used to have a sand filter on my pool, but you know, every summer in Arizona, it seems like the pool would turn green right after a monsoon or something, because it just couldn't keep up with the amount of dirt we were getting inside the pool. But once I switched it out to a DE filter, never had a problem. In fact, the pool can go low on chlorine for a few days, and the diatomaceous earth filter will keep it clean, okay? And it's just easier to clean up a green pool or a pool that's fighting algae or something like that, right? The diatomaceous earth filter. Now, with all 3 of these filters, the sand filter, cartridge filter, DE filter, again, my favorite is probably this tank, the DE filter. Now, there's, you know, the 3 manufacturers out there that make these tanks. There's more than 3, but some of them private label and things like that. But the top 3, Hayward, Pentair, Jandy, which is Zodiac, those 3, they all make those tanks, right? And the difference, only difference is that they're different colors. That's it. They all make the different sizes for every gallons that you can think of. The backwash valves, all of it, and they all work exactly the same. The only difference is the colors and maybe the size of them, right? So, you know, if you're wondering, oh, is one better than the other when it comes to manufacturers? Not really. They all function the same way. Sand filter takes sand, a cartridge filter takes cartridge, and a DE filter takes diatomaceous earth, and it has grids in it, right? So if you're, you know, you're like, oh, Hayward is better because somebody told you that, it's not true, okay? Or Pentair is better, it's not true. They all work the same way. Again, it's just if you prefer a certain color over another one, okay? That's really the only difference in them. The colors, and then like I said, the sizes, they all make different sizes for every swimming pool out there, all right? So that's your difference between the 3 main filters that are used in the pool industry. And again, remember this number, 1.5 to 15 microns, which pretty much tells you really which tank is the best out there, you know, with me, besides me explaining it to you, all right? So, you know, if you're fighting it, or you're the kind of person that stay on top of your pool all the time and you just want easy maintenance when it comes to the tank, then you can do a sand filter or a cartridge filter, right? I've put on a lot of sand filters on pools because, you know, the backyard doesn't have a lot of debris that gets into the pool, and they just wanted a tank that they can go out, flush it, and put it back into filter and be done with it. And then add a clarifier every so often just to help the sand filter, right? Or a cartridge filter. But you know, the other thing is, I've seen a lot of these single cartridges filters out there on pools, and to me, it's always better to go a little bit bigger on the tank than smaller, right? Because then you don't need to run your pump as long to filter all that water out. And typically a residential pool, you need to run the pump at least, 12 hours a day in order for all that amount of water, if it's 10,000, 15, or 20,000, to get through the tank at least once, right? So a little bit bigger tank helps, okay? There's guys that'll sell you a smaller tank because because the cost of it, right? But what you're doing in the long term, you're gonna have more headache and adding more chemicals and fighting it and becoming a pain in the butt, right? If you're the kind of person to have a pool guy, then, I guess don't worry about it, because you're gonna pay the pool guy to take care of the pool, but the pool guy is also gonna hate it because, or he's gonna hate coming to your home because he's always gonna be fighting some algae problem or cloudiness or something with the swimming pool. So putting the right size filter on a pool is so important, right? And not only the right size, but again, the right type of filter, all right? So I think that's it for filters, the 3 type of filters that are in the industry. So hopefully this was helpful to everyone out there. And remember guys, I'm here to make pools easy for you to maintain. They're not a pain in the butt. They're not hard. They're not complicated. Okay, if you don't have the time, right, then hire a pool guy to help you maintain it. But they're actually super easy to maintain if they're set up right. Okay, if you have the right size pump, the right size filter, the right cleaner, you have the right salt system, or you're putting chlorine in the pool, right? If you're putting the right amount, okay, they're super easy to maintain, okay? They're not complicated and they're not hard, okay? So hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching. Remember, watch the kids around water, and until next time, all right?